Welcome to the Three World White Guys.
Hey.
I'm Jacob Dodds.
Hey, Jacob. How are you?
Over at Mission Control, we've got Kellen Gracie.
I am over here at Mission Control. Yeah.
You might be wondering where Mike is tonight. So, a little bit of unfortunate news to share about Mike. If you follow our socials at all, he wrote kind of an op-ed about the incident with Trump being booed and some of the cult tribal behavior about it. And Kellen shared it to our page and our 34,000 followers.
I did.
And it resulted in Mike getting a visit from the FBI, and he's currently detained in a undisclosed location.
Yep.
About threats against the president of the United States. So
a bunker somewhere in Iowa.
No, we're just kidding. Mike is fine. He had some personal stuff to attend to today. He's doing some moving, and we had some severe weather that came through here earlier tonight. So he is fine. He will probably be back next week. But
boy, was that some weather?
Yeah, it was. We got a little bit of rain from that.
Sure did. I don't have one of those rain gauges at my house. You have a rain gauge?
I used to, but no, I don't anymore.
Yeah.
I know the streets were flooded. I made the mistake of I misinterpreted the radar. I went to the local taco truck right before that.
Oh, that
storm
was a
hit.
mistake. That was a mistake.
And so yeah, I drove home in the middle of that. But at least we didn't have the tornadoes and things that we had just to the southwest of us. So.
Is the taco truck still there?
Oh yeah, it's
there
fine.
was a lot of wind. There was some serious wind going on.
Nope, it was fine.
All right. So, well, Jacob, tonight, just me and you, two rural white guys tonight, as you alluded to. Mike's out of here. But tonight wanted to talk a bit about, a theme that kind of carries through has carried through a few of our episodes in the past few weeks about misinformation, about sort of tribal behavior, for lack of a better term. But ultimately, before we get to that, really wanted to start with what's dominating the news right now, or maybe a better way to put it is it's not dominating the news in a way I thought it would, but really should be, and that's the Iran war. It looks like from reports that I'm seeing,
it's a skirmish.
It's
an excursion.
An excursion. Did he call it an excursion? What was the term? Was excursion?
I think it was excursion.
What was the term?
It was supposed to be a 2-week excursion.
A two-week excursion, but instead
it's like Gilligan's Isle. It was supposed to be a 2-hour trip, and ended up stranded on the desert isle.
Yeah. So instead of a 3 to 4 week engagement excursion, whatever the hell you want to call it, whatever they were trying to call it, we end up with what? I posted about this last week. We were in week 15 starting this past Sunday, so we're in week 15 now. By this Sunday, we'll be in week 16, so fully beyond that 3 to 4 week window, I would think. But nonetheless, here we are. We're back in a position where the U.S. is exchanging strikes with Iran. Iran's firing at Israel. Israel's firing at Lebanon. Israel's also firing at Iran. Iran is striking targets throughout the Middle East, Kuwait, Bahrain, places where the U.S. has a presence, has assets, has bases.
Which I don't know how they're striking us. We decimated their military
completely, right?
Completely. We won this war like 12 weeks ago.
I think this is the only
and like
war.
6 times since.
Yeah. I was gonna say I think this is the only war we've won like 38 times. Right? It's just so yeah. I mean, now administration officials now openly talking about continued operations, right? And at some point, someone's going to start talking about a ground war. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't think anybody does other than the people at the Pentagon. But we have the stuff, the troops, the equipment, the assets there in the area, ready to go. So that has me a bit concerned.
Well, and Congress did vote to restrict his war powers, correct? That hasn't changed.
The House, my understanding is the House passed the war powers resolution that had 4 defecting Republicans, and then the Senate still has not.
Okay.
But nonetheless, those are kind of symbolic anyway, because the president has to sign off on it, just a legislative process. The only way that it would actually take effect and stop the war in Iran would be if they overrode his veto, which requires like 2/3 of Congress, and that's just
well, and I mean, it certainly wouldn't be out of line for a malignant narcissist to escalate things just to prove a point.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So, at what point does this? I don't know. We're not necessarily foreign policy experts, but at what point does this turn from excursion or limited retaliation or tit for tat, right? Exchanging fire from one country to the other, right? The latest line is they shot down one of our Apaches. Again, I'm not sure how, given their military is completely decimated, according to the U.S. government. But they shot Apache down or hit it with a drone. I don't know exactly what they did.
Gun.
A slingshot, right? Throwing some rocks at it. But nonetheless, they took down one of our helicopters recently that was flying over the Strait of Hormuz, and that prompted Trump and Hegseth to go out there and start pounding their chests and rattling their sabers, as they say. So at what point does retaliation turn into full-scale war, right? I mean, Trump's already using that word. Trump is already calling this a war, right? But what point does this transition for everybody else? Or does it?
Well, I think there's a couple things at play. First off, what was the refrain that we constantly heard from MAGA during the election? No new wars, right? Trump himself made that a motto of his campaign.
Yeah, he used the term war. He said, we got to get the warmongers out of the White House, referring to Biden and Kamala Harris.
Right. And so there's that aspect of it. He's betrayed those people that say that. And I think we'll get into this a little bit more later, and the fact that those people, there are those people that believe that have completely changed their opinion simply because he has.
Right.
But we'll talk about that a little later here in the episode.
Yeah.
But I think the other part of it is I think, generally speaking, Americans, I think when you really study history post World War II, I think for the most part, Americans view war as being something that's sort of abstract. It doesn't impact their daily life,
right?
Unless they have a friend or a loved one that gets deployed. It's not something that impacts their daily life.
I would even go as far to say Vietnam was the last time that we really experienced, collectively as a country, experienced war. Everybody did.
Yeah,
and that was really because of the draft.
Yeah, I think it was largely a hugely unpopular war because of the draft. And it became very apparent to people that was kind of a war we shouldn't have ever been involved in.
Right.
And a war we frankly couldn't win.
Right.
But I think with this, the reality of this, probably more so, is what we're seeing in the economy right now.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, pretty much every war during my lifetime has been in the Middle East.
Yeah.
We've certainly seen fluctuations in gas prices, but this whole thing, and I'm not going to beat this dead horse to death, but this is literally self-inflicted.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, we had a deal with Iran for to prevent nuclear proliferation. The Strait of Hormuz was open.
The IAEA was involved. They were on site. They were doing inspections, contrary to what MAGA will tell you online.
Yeah. They were not 2 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon.
The Trump administration went in front of Congress and testified under oath, like I think 2 weeks before February 29th or 28th, whenever the war kicked off, and said Iran is not a nuclear threat. They're not close to obtaining a nuclear weapon.
So this is 100% a self-inflicted thing, and we're all paying the price for this now.
Yeah.
Now I think that we saw a lot of that's the benefit of us having the social media following that we do. I don't say that to sort of brag or anything like that, but the engagement that we get from the posts that we put out, one of the things that we see from that is that very clearly when gas here was approaching $4.30 a gallon here, which is the highest it's ever been. Here in Southeast Iowa, that's the highest gas it's ever been.
Even at the peak under Biden, when the national average peaked, it wasn't this high here in Iowa.
And they had a really hard time defending that. They were very angry about it, and you could tell they were angry about it because it was a difficult position for them to defend.
Yep.
Now they're kind of excited because we've had almost an 80-90 cent drop in fuel prices in the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
But that's projected to be short-lived.
Well, how much of that is strictly market manipulation, right? And how much of that is the administration officials going out and pretending a deal is imminent? How many times have we heard we're 48 hours away from signing? I think just a few days before this most recent escalation, Trump was talking about how, they've already agreed to no nukes, and we were already agreed to 90% of this, except a few minor details. And then the Iranian officials come out and say, this guy's fucking crazy.
Or Israel lobs a couple of bombs at Lebanon. Or,
right. And
we don't have ships moving through the strait when it was supposedly open.
Yeah. So, well, let's bring it back home a little bit, or at least to the everyday voter, the everyday American, right? So why should we give a shit about this? Like, why should we care about energy prices fluctuating, skyrocketing? And I'm looking at the price of oil now, and again today it's ticking back up as the strikes are unfolding and escalations are occurring again. Why should people care about this?
Well, I think it's two factors. One, we had the report that came out earlier this week, late last week, about the fact that we have countries around the world that are releasing their reserves right now, which is what's brought the price of oil down to $85 to $90 a barrel right now. But come the end of the month, that's gone. And there's a lot of reports that we're going to see those prices surge, and we're going to probably see shortages. We touched on that last week a little bit with people potentially waiting in lines like they did in the 70s. That's obviously going to have an impact. But I think the other thing is the report that just came out yesterday or the day before, that inflation's the highest it's been in what, 4 years, 3 years?
3 years, yeah.
Which was, I think it was just a little over 4%.
Yep.
If I remember correctly. And the biggest driver of that was energy costs.
Yep. Yeah, 4.2% was the recent reading.
And when you talk about fuel costs, I mean that's an input in agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
That translates to it costs more for farmers to grow crops. It costs more for them to get those crops to market. It costs more money to get those crops to a processing center.
Yep.
It costs more money to bring those those products to your grocery store.
Right.
So it has a trickle down effect that we haven't even seen the full effect from yet.
Yeah. And quite frankly, everything gets put on a truck.
Right.
Everything flies on a plane or gets put on a truck at some point. And all of those vehicles that move goods, wares, whatever around, groceries, they all run on diesel. They all run on fuel. There's just no way around that. Not right now, at least, until we as a country embrace, renewables or EVs more broadly, whatever that looks like. But the way things stand right now, everything is affected by energy costs. But as we know, Donald Trump, he loves the inflation, right?
Yeah, I think you've got a clip of him saying that.
I do. So yeah, I wanted to the way this discussion is heading is towards this recent revelation. Do we call it a revelation that Trump made? I think he's in the Oval Office when he says this. But what was this secret oil story that Trump was talking about the other day, Jacob?
Well, the clip pretty much outlines it. He claims that for several months now, the U.S. had been engaged in a secret operation under cover of darkness, and the fact that we had destroyed all of Iran's radars, even though they shot down one of our helicopters at night. That we've smuggled hundreds of millions of dollars of oil out of Iran.
Let's let him talk about it. Maybe. Or not. That's not working the way I wanted it to.
Uh-oh. And we had those all queued up and everything.
We did.
Beauties of live broadcasts.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's playing, but I don't get any audio out of it. So, nonetheless, Trump goes up and he's sitting in his chair and he's being interviewed. He's talking about oh, I see what's wrong now. Maybe I can still pull this up. Maybe not. Nonetheless, he gets up or he's talking. He's asked about Iran and everything going on in Iran, and he starts off on this story about this undisclosed operation where the U.S. military is helping hundreds of ships move through the Strait of Hormuz. And people are asking him questions about this, right? So they're saying, um, well, he alludes to hundreds of millions of barrels of oil that they've helped slip through the Strait of Hormuz under the, I think he even used the term like under the darkness of night,
Yeah.
something along those
Yeah,
lines.
he claimed that their radars had been destroyed, and he led the response to this. The question was on inflation,
Right.
and he led it off by saying, "I love this inflation,"
He-
and then proceeds to start in about this supposedly secret operation, and he's saying it's going to be great because when this war, that's not a war, that he says is not a war, when this war is over, you're going to see gas prices come down really, really fast because we're going to have all of this oil in reserve.
So, okay, so let's hammer on this a little bit because I think this is really important around the context of where we started this episode, and the idea of misinformation, right? And I think where we're at as a country is we're in a dangerous place because there are a lot of people, and this happens on both sides, but I think more recently MAGA is definitely much more behaving much more like this than Democrats are. But we're in a place in this country where if information is provided to you that doesn't align with your ideology, doesn't align with your tribe, for lack of a better term, that you automatically get right. You automatically don't believe it. You automatically discount it in some way. And here we are. We're presented with the president telling us that there's been this secret operation. How much of this do we actually believe? Because I could see him making up something crazy like this because he keeps doing this thing where he's saying, we have an imminent deal, we have an imminent deal. So I could see him making something up like this to get the markets less jittery, right? The commodities traders, the oil traders, to get the price of oil to stop fluctuating so much, or at least to remain stable. So I could see him making it up, right? But I could also see him just revealing classified information, right? But then you have to stop and think, why would he do that? And then same reason, right? It might be the same reason because he wants to calm the markets and whatnot. So ultimately, though, what I'm trying to get at here is when do we actually I don't really know what I'm trying to say here. When do we take what he's saying to be truthful? I struggle to take anything he says to be truthful these days. But this one's a big whopper in particular. If he's just making it up, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you go back to COVID during his first term, the early stages of COVID, and being on the front line of that, and being part of emergency preparedness, and sitting on meetings with state and federal public health officials in the early days of that, when we were being told by the federal government, this is contained, it's not that big of a deal. And then I go back and I read books that were released, and I mean, you can take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But these are books written by journalists who found sources and things like that. So you have to kind of believe that there's probably some truth to it. Trump's whole focus on the early days of COVID, the reason that we didn't have this massive federal response initially, and the reason that we were all initially told not to panic about it, was because Trump knew it was going to fuck the economy.
Right.
And he didn't want that. He did not want to do the 2 weeks to slow the spread thing.
Right.
And that's why he came out so hard against it, was because it tanked the economy.
Right.
It tanked his roaring economy that he inherited from Obama. So yeah, I don't think it's beyond the pale for him to lie about something like this.
Yeah.
and like you already stated, I mean, he could be lying for it to just for the sake of lying because he looks really really bad right now.
Yeah.
Or he could be lying for the fact that it helps to manipulate the markets. We I'm going to make the prediction that at some point in the future somebody's going to go back and look at all of this, and they're going to determine that there was all kinds of corrupt illegal shit that happened with regards to insider trading, and a lot of people got rich off of
Yeah.
the stuff.
The market manipulation. Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, it's not it's not implausible that our military and our government could pull that kind of an operation off.
Right. Yeah. I can see it happening.
But
right.
but I would find it very hard to believe that in the middle of this, when hostilities have escalated, that they would be okay with the commander in chief going on national television and saying, "Well, I couldn't talk about this before, but now I can," which is what he said. Is, "Well, I couldn't talk about this before." That leads me to believe that he's probably full of shit.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, we could really get off on a side note and get into my conspiracy theory that I really don't think Trump is actually running anything right now.
What do you mean by that?
I think that I don't really think he really truly wanted to be president again.
Yeah.
I think he did it because he knew he could use it to get rich, or somebody told him he could use it to get rich, and he needed to avoid jail. But I think there's a lot of people behind the curtains that are actually running the show, and he was just the populist figurehead to make it happen.
Yeah.
I mean, he's spending so much time. He's off golfing. I mean, he disappeared for 7 days again. There's a lot of health experts that were reviewing some of the footage of when he first came back in. I don't want to get way off our topic here, but I mean, there's we can debate all day whether or not he's got dementia. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But he's definitely experiencing some neurological issues.
Yeah.
Whether he's having transient ischemic attacks, which are like mini strokes, or if he's having full blown strokes that he's being treated for. But he is not well. He's not doing well.
It seems like it's either the start or the end or somewhere around that on a pretty regular basis. Every 4 weeks or so, he disappears for a week. His schedule cleans out. He is not around cameras, press, reporters, and then he comes when he does resurface. He's got makeup on his hands if he puts it on at all, and you don't see the actual bruising. His eye was swollen recently. There were some other people covering this, but it seems like every four weeks or so, he disappears. There's some sort of medical concern, issue, treatment going on.
Yeah, you don't go to Walter Reed you don't go there for a routine physical on Memorial Day,
right?
And when he did finally make an emergence, I've actually seen, and I recognize this. I mean, as a paramedic in training, like I identifying signs of a stroke is in my wheelhouse,
right?
But I've seen it from physical therapists. There's some physical therapists out there that have analyzed this. There's some neurologists that have analyzed some of this video. He had some pronounced left-sided droop on his face.
Okay.
That could have led to the swelling that he had in his eye. He is showing some balance issues. There was the video of him walking back from Marine One after the Knicks game the other night.
Yeah.
Where he couldn't walk in a straight line. He was walking kind of crooked and ambly. Those are all things that are indicative that they could be normal age-related changes, but they certainly seem to point to the idea that there's something acute happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't really want to get too far off our topics
on
this, but
you're
I
not,
think it's relevant to
this.
this.
You're not getting too far off because and the Knicks game is where we're heading next with this. But ultimately, though, what you're alluding to here is the trust in government, the trust in our president is gone.
Well, and I mean, that's nothing new, right? I mean, nobody knew back in the 60s that John F. Kennedy had Addison's disease.
Right.
They didn't realize that his personal physician carried an adrenal emergency kit around with him for that. I mean, there's always been health issues hidden from the public.
Yeah.
That's not new.
Right.
We should be clear about that that's not new. But I think that given the stakes that we have in play here right now, and I guess that would be my question from MAGA is when he's backing up on all of these things that he promised you, the things that you claim you voted for him for. At what point do you start to look at this and say, this isn't what I voted for. This isn't the guy I voted for.
Right.
And to say to the naysayers who might say, well, would you say that about a Democrat? Yeah,
absolutely.
We did go on record in saying that after Biden's debate performance.
You can go back, I don't know, 12, 15 or so, back to the summer of 2024 in our episode lists. You can find several episodes where we're talking about this.
Yeah.
About Biden.
I mean, I watched that debate that night, and you talk about somebody having a stroke. I thought he was having a stroke.
Well, we were watching it together. We were upstairs watching it together because we were going to record and do an episode right after it. We did do an episode right after it, immediately following that debate. So there was no filtered through the lens of national media. We didn't hear Jake Tapper start his nonsense yet. It was the three of us sitting in a room watching that debate there, and we came away with it. Oh my God, what just happened?
And obviously, I mean, everybody else did. I mean, that's that's when the calls came for him to step down,
right.
and it created a clearly defined fracture within the Democratic Party.
Yeah, it did.
And we caught a lot of hate for our position.
We sure
on
did.
that. So I mean, we're not making this a left or a right issue. But I think that when I mean we have some stuff right now that is some of the consequences of some of these things that are happening right now are not going to be fixed overnight.
No, definitely not.
These are things that could take decades to reverse.
Right. But you said something earlier that was interesting. You said this isn't new, right? You talked about JFK, the Addison's disease, and adrenal crises. That's definitely not new. Like, hiding information from the public isn't new. What's new is the extent to which the misinformation comes out of this White House.
Right.
And it's not just health concerns. It's oil. It's the Iran war. It's the conflict. It's the extent of the damage to U.S. bases throughout the Middle East that they're not reporting on, and now that we're finding out via satellite imagery is much worse than the Department of Defense wants to admit.
Or that the level of decimation that we enacted on the Iranian military and the rate at which they're replenishing their forces is not what
those are
led to believe.
And those are all very serious, right? But it's even down to the not as serious, right? I guess it's still serious, but to the point where he went to a Knicks game the other night. Right?
Yep.
He went to a Knicks game the other night. He was invited. He was up in the box. He brought his granddaughter. I don't know who the other guy he was sitting there with. But he went to that game and he was viciously booed. Right?
Right. And I mean, there's a couple things. First off, that factor into that. I mean, first off, he's arguably, regardless of whether you like the guy or not, he is the most hated president in modern history.
Yeah, that's just a fact.
So,
like whether you like him or not. Yeah.
So there's point number one to that. Point number two is we've been telling that we had to destroy the East Wing to build this, what was originally a $300 million privately funded ballroom, which is now over $1 billion and is now all of a sudden become a bunker because the threat to him, which wasn't really a threat to him at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, necessitates that.
Right.
But now we can go to Madison Square Garden in New York City, and that's perfectly secure. That's fine.
Right. Right.
And then the people that paid thousands of dollars for these tickets had to wait hours to get into the venue because of all the extra security.
Yeah.
They canceled watch parties around the vicinity of Madison Square Garden. They were supposed to be large. I mean, they still had some of them, but there were thousands of people that got turned away from the ones that were closest to Madison Square Garden because of the security concerns. So, I mean, it goes without saying that that's going to piss a lot of people off.
Of course, right? My broader point here, though, is he gets audibly booed, and then he comes out and says, "I was cheered." Right? His granddaughter has some sort of crazy social media post where she tries to frame this as a positive thing. Right? Hold on. We'll try this one more time. I think I've got this clip working. Those are not cheers.
No. No. No, and I had to dig for a while to find that clip.
Right.
There, right there. That was the part that I really wanted to focus on.
Hold on. You want me to go back?
Yeah, start it from the very beginning.
Okay.
Now,
so yeah.
So this is an angle that was not this angle was not routinely shown in some of the mainstream press coverage.
So this
Not
is
even
from,
not even the right wing things that were trying to defend him, just in general. Like, I mean, Kellen, we were trying to find that clip tonight. It took me a while to find it. It was one I originally found on Facebook, and I had to dig for a while to find it.
Shout out to Mother Jones for providing that.
Yes, but that angle is important because most of the other versions of it show basically right when he comes up on the screen, and what you don't see is that
the moment prior,
that very defined shift in the tone of that crowd.
right?
You can see that from the very beginning of that. The American flag is shown up on the jumbotron,
Just kind of generic crowd noise and whatnot.
And then he shows up, and that tone drops.
Yep.
And that is without question shows that the majority. I mean, I don't doubt that there were people in there that were chanting USA.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that there were people in there cheering for him. But it shows that the overwhelming majority of the people in Madison Square Garden were pissed off that he was there. They don't like him. They would just as soon he fucking go somewhere else. And it was very clear from the audiences outside, even though that was a relatively small group of people. That tone was very clear.
Yeah. And this is all coming back to the misinformation piece, the lies. I was floored when I saw today MAGA, the administration, the White House, his granddaughter, all trying to make the argument that he was not booed. I just couldn't believe that. I think that it's what do they call it? The Streisand effect, right? Where you're spending time talking about something that everyone else has already kind of moved on from and whatnot, right? It was a moment. We all saw it. It was obvious. We know he's hated, especially in New York. Like, New Yorkers don't like Donald Trump. They hate Donald Trump. We know his poll numbers are terrible. The low 30s. It doesn't even matter what polling outlet you look at, Fox News or anything right wing, or if it's anything left wing, he's in the low 30s. It's historically bad approval rating. No matter what, we all know that a solid 60%, 70% of the country just despises the guy. In New York, it's going to be even worse. It's a liberal city, big urban area, and they have a history with him, and they've hated him for a long time.
Yeah, that's nothing new for New York City. And going back to what I mentioned at the top of the episode with the little joke about Mike. On a serious note, go to our Facebook page and read his op-ed.
Mike's piece, you mean?
Yeah. He talks about that.
Yeah.
And he got pretty viciously attacked in the comments on that, and he took the time to respond to some of those comments. And that was kind of the recurring theme. It was a lot of people trashing on New York City that have never stepped foot there.
Yeah. Right. And I think a lot of people in Iowa have never been to New York City, but love to hate it. Yeah. It is what it is. Nonetheless, though, kind of moving along with the conversation here, there was another recent incident involving Donald Trump that I think is worth pulling up in the context of this. People don't trust the government, particularly don't trust this administration. But Donald Trump was part of a was that a sit down interview with, was it 60 Minutes or no? It was Meet the Press.
Yeah, it's Meet the Press. Kristen Welker from Meet the Press.
So he sits down with Kristen Welker from Meet the Press, and they're in Wisconsin, and we'll play this clip too. But in the clip, you can hear like a downpour happening, like rain in the background. So when you hear this clip, when we play it here in a minute, that noise you hear in the background is rain.
Yeah, for the non-rural people, that's what it sounds like when you're in a metal pole barn and it's raining.
And yes, and you can see that they're in some sort of barn. There's a tractor behind them. There's hay bales and all that kind of stuff, right? But she won't let him go on this issue of election fraud, right? He is all up in arms about California in particular, because Tuesday night was election night, primary night. And this was an interview that was taped this past Friday, aired on Sunday. And he's talking about the upcoming, now in the past, but upcoming California election, primary night. And his favorite candidate, at least in the LA mayoral race, ends up getting knocked out. But he is railing on about this because the polling heading up into election night is looking bad for the candidates that he likes. So he is complaining. He's talking about election fraud. He's alluding to 2020 and talking about how that one was stolen and this, that, and whatever, right? All the same old song and dance that he's been on for the last 6 years that we've known and loved about him. Love is a strong word. I'm doing a lot of work there. But she asks him point blank, right? Like, where's the evidence? So I don't know if she actually uses the words, where is the evidence? But she says, sir, there's been no evidence of election fraud. And he gets up and walks out of the interview.
Yeah, well, and I think the other context before you play the clip that needs to be thrown in there was he brought this up.
Really?
He brought the topic of election fraud up. Her initial question, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think her initial question leading into this was with regards to the fact that during this event in Wisconsin, when he was meeting with ag groups and farmers, she'd asked a question along the lines of, when you look at the price of diesel fuel and fertilizer and the inputs and things that are coming up, like, are you concerned about the fact that the farmers overwhelmingly voted for you but are being hurt by these things?
Right.
And of course he was like, they all voted for me, they all love me. And that's sort of where he devolved into this. Look, I won these states and this state, and then he starts into the fact that the elections.
He just starts spiraling.
So he brought the topic up.
Yeah.
She called him out on it, and he gets pissed and walks away.
Yeah. All right, let's play this clip because I wanna hear this.
The election was rigged.
It was a dirty election.
Mr.
And it's
President,
happening again right now in
never
California.
Presented evidence
It's happening
that the
right now in
2020 election
California.
was rigged.
Right now, look at what's
Where's
happening
the
in
evidence
California.
to that?
It's
The
4
Republicans
days.
are doing well in
California. No, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days, and they aren't even close to coming up with it.
That's how they count
You know
the
why
votes
they're doing
in
that? Because
California.
they're cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support
All
that?
I have to do is look.
She does
All I
that.
have to
Do you
is
have
That's not
evidence?
evidence.
And I listen to people, and let's see what happens.
But sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think
and
it's appropriate?
That's how they
that they
count the votes in
Do you
California.
think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a
State
winner?
and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the
crooked.
votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote
They're
in
crooked,
California.
just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
Let's
Well, you
continue.
play right into their hands.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid.
Let's
You play
continue.
right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But Mr. President,
You know why I
you've
got
never
that?
presented
Because you have no
evidence.
credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about. I want to talk about Todd
You
Blanche.
have more evidence. There's more evidence
my God.
than ever presented.
Let's talk
Your
about.
elections
She
in
tries
this
to divert
country,
him.
We're like a
Yeah.
third world country.
She tries to
Your
give him an out.
elections
Yeah.
are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked,
Mr.
and so
President-
is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But Mr. President-
Your
Old man
one-sided
shakes fists
crooked
at clouds.
networks. Right. Let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please. I traveled all the way
Nope,
to
he
Wisconsin.
steps on the
I've sat
microphone.
I traveled
rain with
all.
you.
I know. I
I've sat in
traveled
the rain
all the
with
way
you
to
for an hour,
Wisconsin.
on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr.
A
President,
country can never be
We
great
traveled
with a dishonest
Listen,
press.
we
Come on, let's
traveled
go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
That is the president of the United States there, Jacob.
And we shouldn't be shocked. I mean, this isn't the first time he's done this. I mean,
Right.
he has a long-standing history of walking out of interviews when he gets confronted on things he doesn't like, even before he was president. Like, you can go back into the 80s and find interviews that he's walked out on.
Right.
And that's a common trend when you have the type of personality disorder that he has, that when you're confronted, you can't accept accountability for anything.
Yeah.
You have to pass the buck on that. So I mean, it's not surprising, and I think the problem is that we've just become numb to it because it's like, I mean, he's on the same rhetoric he's always been on, right? The election was rigged, the press is crooked, like it's all the same shit that he always says.
Yeah.
And he does that because his followers eat it up, and it undermines and erodes the trust in the institutions that are supposed to keep politicians honest.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned earlier off air while we were chatting about topics and whatnot before we came live. You mentioned a image that you saw of Kristen Welker.
Yeah. I mean, you know how if you spend time on social media, I mean, you know how the algorithms work. They throw stuff at you that they know you're going to engage in, right?
Yeah, the rage bait, right? the stuff that gets the most reactions and engagement.
So I mean, they're probably the right wing versions of us, right? Like the right wing influencers that have moderate followings, but they're people I've never heard of.
Yeah.
And they go and they try to twist things to try to post that. So one of the things that I saw, and I can't remember who it was that posted it, but it was a screen grab of Kristen Welker in that interview. And if you go back and you look at that clip again, I mean, you can very easily find several places where they could have grabbed it from,
right?
Where she's just she's almost frustrated.
Well, I didn't see anger though.
No, it was more of a frustration of, first off, you're not answering the question I asked you,
right?
And second off, like,
you brought this up.
Why can't you acknowledge what evidence exists out there?
Right.
I mean, that's the key thing. Is great if you've got all this evidence that the elections are rigged. Then I've given you a platform to show that. To the
Here's your
American
opportunity
people.
right now.
But I don't think that. I mean, she was never openly hostile to him.
Right.
But there was a screen grab of her face, and in that particular, it looks like she's screaming at him like a banshee.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think the caption said something about, why should anybody be surprised that the president is rude to a reporter when this is how the reporters treat him?
Right. But she treated him with respect, and
right.
And
but that's the thing is that this is getting so bad for these people that they really don't have much of a means to defend him with anymore.
Right.
Like, they have to just resort to manipulated images, outright lies, and I think this is really kind of the issue we have with AI, is that deep fakes and things like that are getting really good, and it's kind of coming back to what we've already said. It's getting very, very difficult to determine what's real and what's not.
Yeah, it's like a collective collapse of a shared reality, right? We're living on a different planet, it feels like at times, and people sharing that kind of stuff right now are just they're not living in reality. That's not a truthful illustration or representation of how she acted and behaved and how she treated the president. That's just the way it is.
I mean, I saw another example. We talked about gas prices earlier. I saw a post yesterday from somebody here locally that was talking about how, oh, well, look, Trump fixed the gas prices. They're already down to they're already down to $2 a gallon, and it's like, where the fuck are you buying $2
Right.
a gallon gas?
Right.
I mean, I haven't seen gas below $3 since before the war.
No.
So, you know,
No one's buying $2 gas.
you can't just pull this shit out of your ass and expect people to believe it.
Right. But they do. So I have a question for you, Jacob, because he gets really testy around elections and election nights, because if you go to his vomit-inducing social media platform, Truth Social, and you can actually, by the way, audience members and Jacob, if you weren't aware, you can track Donald Trump's Truth Social posts without actually going on to Truth Social and giving them the traffic and the benefit of eyeballs and engagement and whatnot. There's a website, if you Google Trump's Truths, I want to say it's trumpstruth.org or something like that. But there's a website, and they exist solely to grab and archive his posts on Truth Social. So you can even find the stuff that he posts, you know, for 2:00 in the morning, and then by 6 a.m. some staffer has panicked and had it deleted, right? That still exists on this page, even though it might not be on his Truth Social feed. But anyway, nonetheless, he gets really riled up around election nights. And if you go to his Truth Social history there, you can see that following election nights, he posts all these AI-generated graphics, and it's like, Trump-endorsed candidate, Marionette Miller Meeks, congratulations, you won your primary. And then the next post, Trump-endorsed candidate, right? And he'll do that for every single candidate that he endorsed. He makes, well, I don't know if he does it or if he's got these like scheduled and ready to go, or I'm sure he doesn't do any of this on his own. But he makes a post for every single candidate that he endorsed. So when we had our elections last week in Iowa, our primary election, there were a few other states had him that night too. So if you go on there, there's like 40 posts back to back throughout election night of him congratulating these people. And then my question to you, Jacob, this is a little context for you. My question to you is, he's getting really riled up about this California thing heading into the election hadn't happened, right? Heading into election night. And so this was last night that California had their election, and Spencer Pratt was his, I think that's his name, Spencer Pratt.
Yeah, the guy from the OC.
But what?
He was a reality TV star, of course.
Another one.
Yeah.
Another one. Okay, so our Secretary of Transportation and his favored candidate in the LA mayoral race.
Yeah, on another MTV show.
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Okay, so reality TV star turned hopeful politician Spencer Pratt was running to be mayor of LA. And just the way that they do elections with the top two primary system in California, it takes a long time to count the votes, but they also take the top two candidates in the primary and they go head to head in the general. Doesn't matter what party they're in. So you could end up with two Democrats at the top of the list that are going head to head in the general, and you're picking between two Democrats versus a Democrat versus a Republican. That's just the way they do elections. Spencer Pratt was not in the top two.
Shocker.
The week prior in Iowa, Randy Feenstra did not win. Randy Feenstra was the preferred candidate, the endorsed candidate by Donald Trump. So my question to you is this just like narcissism on steroids? Like, what are we dealing with here? Because he, in the last week and a half, has been particularly spicy.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of I think he's been particularly brutal with California for the simple fact that California pretty much hates him.
Oh, for sure. Not pretty much, definitely.
And I think the fact that Gavin Newsom has a lot of traction to potentially be a candidate for president in 2028. So I think he's kind of setting the stage for setting him up to be crooked or corrupt, or whatever it is that he, whatever nickname he's already got one for him, I guess. Newscum.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I haven't heard that one in a while. Yeah. But Newsom hasn't been as visible and present as he was. He had a moment, was that last summer when he was doing all the trolling? Or I guess the war really took away his thunder there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and Hunter Biden kind of took over the shit posting.
Hunter Biden did. We'll have to talk about that next week. That is a discussion for next week because we've been chatting for a while here. But I really want to talk about the what do we call that? Rebuilding? I don't know. The reimagination of Hunter Biden
Right.
and how he's taken on this new. But yeah,
But
you were saying.
to what you asked, I think that is one part of it. I think it is somewhat premeditated, and there's a long-term plan there. I'll echo kind of what Mike said last week about the fact that Trump's he's not dumb.
No.
He knows what he's doing in some regards to that. But I also think the biggest part of it is I really think it's as simple as his ego is still injured horribly from losing the 2020 election. So any opportunity that he has to attack the electoral system, or any time that his endorsed candidates lose, he didn't attack it during the primaries. I mean, a lot of his chosen candidates didn't lose during the primaries this time around.
Yeah.
But he's not going to attack other Republicans. He's not that stupid.
Right.
So I think that's really I think it's really as simple as that.
Yeah.
Well,
he took some other L's recently too, right? His slush fund for the criminals, the weaponization fund that he was going to $1.8 billion he was going to dole out to his cult members for engaging in various crimes. That got shot down, right? The House, like we mentioned earlier, voted to pass the War Powers Resolution Act that, if signed by the president, would ultimately end the Iran war. And 4 Republicans jumped on board with that. And then you had a whole mess of skirmishes between Trump officials and various elected officials, be it in the Senate, the House, all those different hearings where RFK Jr. was basically arguing with Republicans during these hearings who had just had enough of the bullshit, right?
Yeah, and I think what's going to be really telling is it's typically after the midterm elections is when you start to see, especially when you have a lame duck situation like this, where constitutionally, at least, Trump can't run in 2028.
Right. Unless if you ask Steve Bannon, that's not true. But I don't know, who the hell is
well,
that?
Trump kind of keeps setting up the fact that it's not true either.
Yeah.
But
We'll see about that.
We're going to start to see some potentials emerge within that. I think that's going to have a lot to do with how he reacts to that as well, and he could be setting that up to undermine the result. He knows Republicans are going to be hugely unpopular, especially if they get slaughtered in the midterms,
Which they're going to.
and so I think that's part of it. Is, I mean, he did this in 2020. He set the stage early that the electoral process was corrupt, which going back to how do you know if this is truthful or not?
Trust.
I mean, again, if he had evidence, present it.
we would have seen it by now.
But more than that, it's just the simple fact that if he lost the 2020 elections because the Democrats rigged it against him, then why did Democrats not have huge gains
in 2020?
In 2020.
Well, yeah.
And why did they not win in 2024?
And if they rigged it, it was a very narrow win in 2020. In 2022, why didn't they rig it? And then in 2024, why didn't they rig it? Right? If they were such cunning political operatives that they were rigging elections all over the country, why did they stop after the one election and only Joe Biden? Right? What about all those down ballot races where Republicans won in 2020?
But again, I'm going to be really arrogant and climb in his head and say
an ugly place to be.
That I really
Jacob.
think that what it boils down to is he doesn't give a shit about any of those other
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
He's the one that lost.
Yeah.
And so it's a conspiracy against him.
Yeah.
He can't acknowledge that, what's the most common thing that you hear in a concession speech from somebody that's lost an election? Well, we came out, we fought hard, we tried to make our message clear, and I appreciate all the support, but we just they usually wish the other candidate best of luck.
Yeah, or this isn't the end. We're still fighting. The next chapter is
Yeah.
upon us, right? Something along those
Yeah.
lines. But it's always something, not like this is all rigged. I
Yeah.
hate the. It's the equivalent of your sports team, your favorite sports team lost a game, and you spend the next 3 hours complaining about the refs.
Right. And I think that is a decent analogy for what we're seeing in politics in general right now.
Yeah.
Is this I'll even, I don't think it's as prevalent on the left, at least not right now.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as prevalent amongst Democrats as it is amongst Republicans right now. But this and I loved Mike's post on Facebook, because he added the Living Color song "Cult of Personality," which is great.
Yeah, that
which
was
is a great fucking song anyway.
It took me a minute. I had to watch that reel, or it wasn't a reel. I had to watch what he generated there a couple of times to get it. But yeah, that is a great post. I strongly encourage you to go see it.
But
listeners.
but I mean, that's literally what he has done. Is he
Yeah.
has created a cult of personality, which is literally what dictators do.
So there's a question here, and it's relevant right now to this part of the conversation. There's a question from someone tuning in. Do we think? Well, I'll put this to you, Jacob. Do you think that Democrats sweep as much or more in 2026 than Republicans did in 94? So I was in 94. I was 8 and living in Canada, so I was definitely not paying attention to the midterms. So this is, I think, the Newt Gingrich year. The contract with America midterm during Bill Clinton's first term. But for some context there, Republicans gained 54 seats in the House of Republicans that cycle. House of Representatives that cycle, but it became the House of Republicans. And this was the first Republican majority in the House in 40 years.
Uh-huh.
So prior to this, before that, in 1954, was the last time that Republicans had control of the House. And then in 94, they finally flipped it. And it was a wave election, 54 seats, wave election, big deal. Do you think, are we looking at something as bigger? We spent last week going through turnout numbers, and we were very focused on the state of Iowa. So go find that episode if you're in Iowa and you're really interested in what, if anything, we can take away from the primary night last week. Last week episode was all about that. But turnout is huge. We're seeing this in all of these special elections across the country. Virginia, what was North Carolina was the other big one where the governor's race was. All these special elections at the House level, Democrats are outperforming by double digits. So, what do you think?
Well, so I was 13 in 1994, but I was probably a little more politically aware than most 13-year-olds.
The average 13-year-old American.
Because of the fact that I had Democratic operatives in my family. I had an uncle who...
That sounds nefarious.
Yeah, well,
Democratic operatives.
I don't know what else to call them. I mean, I had an uncle who was Bill Clinton's campaign manager.
Oh, that's pretty
in
cool.
'92. So, I mean, I grew up around this stuff. My grandpa.
I didn't
was really
know that.
involved in politics.
How did I not know you had an uncle that was the campaign manager?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
So I mean, I grew up around these things, or at least you've heard these conversations around, the family dinner table kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And my memory serves the key issues in the 1992 election. So I think you have to take into account the election of Bill Clinton as part of this.
Yeah.
When you take into account the 1992 election, George Bush was the first George Bush, George H.W. Bush, wasn't a deeply unpopular president. But he had some issues because there was some faltering on the economy that happened coming out of the 80s. And part of that really wasn't his fault. In 1989, that's basically when you had the fall of communism.
Yeah.
So you had huge shifts in the world market with Russia and the uniting of Germany.
Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
things all had impacts on the economy that really were sort of outside of the bounds of his control.
And the whole no new read my lips, no new taxes.
Yep.
That was a big part of
Yep.
that campaign. Yeah.
We'd had, but that's hard to. Again, that's the thing with that I've always been frustrated with Republicans is they're obsessed with cutting taxes. You know, they're obsessed with being fiscal hawks when Democrats are in charge.
Mm-hmm.
But we also saw huge increases in military spending, despite the fact that the existential threat that we had been fighting against had collapsed in that time frame.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that we got into the Persian Gulf War, the first Persian Gulf War,
Mm-hmm.
which some would say it was becoming very apparent towards the end of his term that we didn't finish the job there.
Right.
You know, we created a vacuum which only strengthened Saddam Hussein
Right.
and led to the Taliban and all the other things that became issues for us 10 years later.
And further down the road, ISIS and all the other.
So I mean those are the things that led to plus Clinton just had a very populist sort of plurality approach to
Yep.
things.
Yep.
And I think the fact that he wasn't an old white guy,
Mm-hmm.
I mean he was in his 40s at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that appealed to people, and so he got elected. But I think
he also was from Arkansas, right?
yeah.
So a Democrat from Arkansas, you could see as a moderate, not a super lib from New York or California or whatever. Maybe back
Democrats
there.
still had a very strong presence in the South
right.
at that point in
Yeah,
time as well.
the party realignment started after Nixon's Southern strategy, but it really did. You still had Democrats getting elected to the U.S. House, like from Mississippi and Louisiana.
And Texas had a Democrat governor.
And you still had you still had those blue dog Democrats, the conservative Democrats that would today vote with MAGA, with
Right.
Republicans on everything. But back then were Democrats because that whole partisan realignment piece hadn't really run its course quite yet. It was still going on. Yeah.
But I think what happened in the first 2 years of Clinton's term was I think really when Americans became aware of the issue of the national debt.
Yeah.
That was big discussion.
Yep.
I mean, it had been for years, but that was a really huge point of discussion. I mean, I can remember commercials on TV and billboards that showed
Yeah.
what the national debt clock was, right?
Yep.
I mean, it was constantly going
Yeah.
up. And so that started to get at people a little bit, and the economy was we were in a little bit of a we had a little bit of a recession in the early 90s that occurred.
Yep.
There were some
The
issues
farm
with
crisis
costs.
in the 80s had still been fresh.
Right.
Yeah.
And so and then I think the other thing, and I think this really sort of is where you can really point to the start of the true sort of anti-establishment, sort of anti-government, freedom flag waving stuff came from, is it started with the Waco incident.
Oh.
Without
yeah.
recurring that entire thing, I mean, we could make a whole episode
Yeah.
out of that, but that's been beat to
Yeah.
death. There's plenty
Yeah.
of documentaries about it.
Yeah.
Go watch one.
And how that results in the Oklahoma City bombing and white
Janet
nationalists.
Reno did a lot to
Yeah.
damage the credibility of our government agencies, and the Clinton administration had a huge black eye, and that was a huge issue in that election.
Yeah.
And
that
so
was,
that shifted to this neoconservative, which at the time was the Tea Party, was
Right.
MAGA.
right. And Janet Reno was Attorney General. She was over there at the Department of Justice, so head of the boss of the FBI director and so on and
But
so forth.
I mean, the issue with Waco and Ruby Ridge were really the two things that happened on her watch that were essentially they're essentially the murdering of innocent Americans.
Yeah.
I mean, there were obviously compounding factors within that. I mean, they weren't all innocents, but there were plenty of innocent people that died as a result of those.
But that begs a question, and we're running low on time, so I don't want to go too deep into this. But it begs a question for me based on those comments, because you're talking about the national debt clock, you're talking about this new awareness of fiscal responsibility that's going on in the 90s that maybe wasn't there prior. The contract with America, Newt Gingrich, 94, right? This is all in the context of this question. Are Democrats going to sweep as much or more?
Yeah, I never answered your question.
No, you didn't. You just rambled on, but that's okay.
Yes, I to answer your question. Yes, I think they're going to sweep it, because I think many of those same things that led to that that sweep that occurred
Are
in
present.
1994
Yeah.
are present now.
Yeah, those same kind of cultural touch points and political and fiscal touch points here. But my question, and like I said, I don't want to go too deep. We can end on this note. But all of that being said, Bill Clinton balanced the fucking budget. He handed George W. Bush a surplus.
And he did it taking licks from his own party because
Yeah.
he took a bipartisan approach to it.
He took a bipartisan approach to it, and he balanced the budget. And we entered the 21st century as a country with a balanced budget where the federal government was taking in more money than it was spending. And then in the last 26 years have completely screwed that up, right? And now, for the first time, at 39, approaching 40 trillion in debt, the U.S. federal government spends, I think the number was spends more in interest payments on debt than it does on the military. The Department of Defense budget is smaller than the interest payments on debt. And we have gone wildly out of control. And so all of that being said, why then, if he's handed, why when well, I'm almost answering my own question in my head, but I'm gonna let you give you the opportunity to answer this. Why does George W. Bush get elected? Bill Clinton balances the budget. Democrats balance the budget. They take a bipartisan approach.
That's an easy one, Colin.
I know it is. I'm answering the own question in my head, but tell me why you think. And I think there's some parallels to now.
George Bush won the election in 2000 because of the Electoral College and a fucked up process in Florida.
Well,
that's why he won.
And Monica Lewinsky.
Uh,
How many moderate Republicans otherwise would have voted for a Democrat or been okay with the Democrat Party if they had not reacted the way that they did to sort of circle the wagons around Bill Clinton?
I mean, okay. Yeah, I'll give you that.
So that being said, is something similar going on right now? Like, are Democrats circling the wagons? Because I look at like the Senate race in Maine with Graham Plattner. And again, we're running out of time, and I think we could do a whole episode on on Graham Plattner. But you get where I'm going with this, right? You see, you have candidates that otherwise can't reach, and this is also kind of a theme of our podcast and what we spend a lot of time talking about is reaching those independents, reaching those center-right Republicans, those disillusioned Republicans who are like, fuck MAGA, I've had enough of this. Gas cannot be $4 a gallon, so on and so forth, right? Do we have is a little bit of that going on right now?
Oh yeah, 100%.
You think so?
I mean, I see it. Well, I see it in just the people I talk with.
Yeah.
You know, I've had these conversations. I mean, I've got plenty of friends that are conservative, that have been conservative, and you know, they are shifting from this. They are 100% shifting from this.
Yeah.
I think there comes a point where you just can't
do it anymore.
You can't continue to defend the stuff that's happening, and I don't think we're seeing it at the rate it should be happening.
Yeah. But
I think what is probably more unique, and this is kind of coming back to the topic of this segment, I think what's more unique about Donald Trump compared to any other president in modern history is the fact that, again, it comes back to this like sort of cult-like behavior that's around him.
Yeah.
These people have made it their identity. And once you meld your support for something with your identity, it is very, very difficult to separate yourself from that and see the facts for what they are.
There's political science research that shows partisan ID is harder to change than your religious identification. So just think about that for a minute.
I mean, I know I've mentioned this a few times on the show. We love to make fun of the bug eaters in Nebraska because
the bug eaters,
they suck, and we're Iowa fans, and it is what it is. But I will give the credit,
Go Hawks.
I will give credit to the Nebraska fans, even though they are stuck in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
They're right.
Mm-hmm.
They've had a modern era like BCS series national championship, and Iowa has not.
Well, speaking of Nebraska, there's an interesting independent candidate running out there as a kind of center-left populist that I've been keeping my eye on. He's running for the U.S. Senate. That's a race to watch. Just under the radar, it could be one of those deals where we end up with like an Angus King sort of figure who slips in a red state or a mostly red state or purple. I don't know what to call it. Nebraska's a red state. It's definitely not a purple state, but it could end up slipping in, largely because of that economic populism. But otherwise, they're an independent. They're not a Democrat.
Well, they also have a unicameral legislature.
That's right. At the state level. Yeah. The state level unicameral legislature. And they do the funky thing with their electoral vote where they have one
Split
sort
it.
of wild vote in the electoral college.
Because most of the people that live in Nebraska live in Omaha.
That's right. Yes. So Omaha gets
If
represented.
you've driven across it, there ain't much else.
There's
beyond
nothing
there.
else. So Omaha does get represented in the electoral college in a way that a lot of other states don't too. So, anywho, Jacob, I think we can leave it at that. Any other parting comments before we leave for the evening? Mike, we miss you. Wish you were here. Hope everything is well. Can't wait for you to get back. What do you think?
I think we've probably beat the dead horse
Are
enough. At
are
this point.
we as a society, are we screwed? Like, are we going to further this divide between truth and reality and misinformation? Government trust is never going to restore back to where it was.
Well, I think you've just created another hour-long podcast with that question. But I'll sum it up really short. I mean, politics have been dirty from the outset of this country.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's just part of what it is.
Well, they used to like literally cane each other on the House floor
And
They would beat
duels
each other.
and
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
shit.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's nothing new.
Right.
Right. But I think the defining thing here, and we could have a whole, like, we literally could do a whole nother podcast episode on this.
Yeah.
Is social media adds a dynamic that has never existed before.
True.
And when we start combining it with AI, and you start combining it with the fact that people aren't consuming mainstream press like they once did,
Yeah.
and you sort of have this degradation of journalism that's occurred, it leads to people sort of filing themselves into boxes.
Yep.
And choosing what they want to believe.
Yep.
And I do think that's going to be very difficult to overcome. And I think that is quite possibly a aspect of society that will never change.
So we're fucked.
We might be.
Yeah. Well, shout out to the listener from Kelowna. Kelowna area is where we got that comment about the 94 elections. So Kelowna, Riverside area, shout out to you for chiming in and bringing that to our attention. But this has been an episode. This has certainly been an episode. I am Kellen Gracie. This is Jacob Dodds. We'll see you next time.
You guys.
They're high up on that horse, we're down here fighting wars.